But Green Day has a couple new songs out. In my opinion, they're some of the best stuff they've done in 20 years. What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to the Punk Rock Review Podcast. Got Rob from the Punk Odds hanging out with me again. Yeah, dude, go check his channel out. He's getting back to the grind, so you'll see more videos of his pop up as well. So go check his channel out. Today we're going to be doing something that I never ever thought I would do, because full disclosure, I'm not the biggest fan of this band. I'm not saying I don't like them, because that's not true. I like them actually quite a bit. But Green Day has a couple new songs out. In my opinion, they're some of the best stuff they've done in 20 years. And so that led me to listening to more of their music, their older stuff. And I said, hey, let's do a top 5 Green Day video. So that's what we're doing. The top 5 Green Day albums. We will maybe do a top 5 song when the album drops. That's probably what I'll do, is a top 5 songs thing when their new record drops. But yeah, so what's up, Rob? How are you today?
I'm excited to talk Green Day because, as I am sort of still in my Vegas hangover here, the main event of that weekend was seeing Green Day. Like, that was what the weekend, both in the city and in the festival, was built around, the new album release. And it really hasn't stopped. You've had the tour announcements since then. You've got the full, all the dates coming in this last week. So everyone's making their plans of where to go. We're in a Green Day world right now, and it's 2023. That's wild.
It's so weird. Honestly, it's super weird that Blink's big too. It feels like 2003 right now. Like, it straight up feels like 2003.
Spotify sent me the old new punk playlist, and Green Day, Blink, and Alkaline Trio were like 3 of the top 4 bands on there.
Well, look, okay, if you just look back 20 years from right now, Blink was huge, Green Day was huge, Alkaline Trio was starting to get steam, Rancid was doing they were back.
Indestructible,
like,
yeah.
Dude, like, this is a bunch of those guys having like midlife crisis. They're like, I gotta put some music out. Like,
yeah.
And they're all those bands getting the itch again.
And they're all kind of like nailing it. Like, maybe not the best stuff of their career, but it's actually acceptable stuff from every single one of them is doing something that's like, yeah, that's an Alkaline Trio song. That's a Green Day song. Like, they're not doing the nostalgia thing necessarily.
I would agree, but I would even go one step further and say it's all top half of their career. It's all top 50%. I haven't heard one of these yet where I was like, okay, this is a bottom half song or album. Like, the Alkaline Trio stuff is fantastic. The Blink album is a top half of their albums. I don't know where it fit, but it would definitely fit in the top half. The Rancid one, in my personal opinion, is a top 3. And then there's Green Day stuff. I've already said it once in this video. This is the best that they've made in 20 years.
Yeah, that the potential on this new Green Day album is insane.
It's kind of bonkers, isn't it?
Like, especially after going through their most recent stuff, I'm like, oh, that stuff was okay, and it doesn't touch what they just put out.
Dude, I agree. I don't understand where the hatred's coming from, because I'm seeing people are like not liking it, and I have to believe, because objectively it's good music. Objectively it's catchy. Objectively it sounds like Green Day, like, or early Green Day. Like, you can't tell me it doesn't. I'll show you where it does. It's just produced a little different, right? I have to feel like the people that are hating on this are just people that don't like Green Day. And I never was a Green Day hater at all. Like, not even a little bit. I was just never like a big fan. Back when Green Day popped off, I have some really, we'll get into it when we start talking about these albums. I have some really bad memories associated with some Green Day hits. And that puts them in a weird place for me. So when I was younger, I naturally gravitated towards Offspring and Rancid, and then Blink 182, and I just kind of skipped Green Day. Though I had all of their records from Kerplunk up through probably Warning, maybe Nimrod, one of those two. Probably Warning. I probably had them all the way through there. I had them. I just didn't like go nuts with them, you know?
Yeah. And it's crazy because you could follow Green Day too without going nuts with them, because they're such a ubiquitous band. Like, even if you're not into punk rock, you would kind of know these albums just because they're so big in pop culture that they're kind of hard to miss as a band.
100%. I'm sorry if you can't hear me. Yeah, 100%. Sorry, dude. That fan started drying my eyes out immediately. I was like, well, that was a terrible decision. So the band is one of those bands that they were special when they dropped, and people didn't like it. People were like, no, they're too poppy. Which, look, is that a valid complaint? sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I find it a little silly personally. And I'm guilty of this too. So I'm contradicting myself. Whatever, dude. Like, but back then, I especially after going back and listening to all their records, because I listened to every one of them except Uno Dos Tres twice. That yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit. Excuse me. But I don't understand how people hated them back then. I think they've always gotten a lot of hate from the punk rock scene. Like the normies love them.
Mm-hmm.
But like the punk rockers don't, and I just think it's silly. I think it's unwarranted. Like,
well, they've gotten the most hate of any punk band ever. They are the most hated punk band, I think, in that sphere, because they're the most successful punk band ever. Both those things are true. So they are the most successful punk band. So by virtue, they're the most hated, and they're still kind of a punk band in a lot of ways, way more so than a lot of their other peers. So that's the other thing that people don't like about them, is that they are still a punk. Like these other bands that we talk about that are on their tier, you could say like they haven't really been punk. They've been, post pop punk, like the stuff we talked about last week. Like Green Day still basically their base music is punk rock still to this day.
Well, my thoughts on that would be that they were always a punk rock band, and that they just had some ambitions that were maybe outside the punk rock box. But their ethos, their lyrical content, their work ethic, it was all based around punk. So like, do they have some stuff that I would consider not punk? Yeah. Not a lot though. Not a lot, bro. I listen to all these records, man. I can tell you, it's not a lot. I'd say Rancid has just as much music that I would say is not punk as Green Day, because they have a lot of dub and reggae and stuff, but they're still a punk band.
Yeah.
And I think it's semantics. People are going to argue about it, and all the edgelords are going to get here and go, "You're not a punk band, dude. Go for it. Whatever you got to say, man. I don't care. I just don't like." And I'm going to say something back to you, and I still don't care.
The thing that I got with that over the weekend is I was kind of thinking about that too, because that's always what you got to talk about with Green Day, is just the level of disdain that the punk rock community like publicly showed from too. It's not just like it is now with trolls online. Like you literally had Tim Yohannan writing editorials in Maximum Rock and Roll saying how awful it. Like what an advertisement for them, by the way, for them to get kicked off. But that is always going to be part of the story. Like they're behind the music. The first half of it is just nothing on how much like everyone in the punk scene hated them. So they had to deal with that, and they're unapologetic about it. But I go through it, and like they were never actually even respected amongst their peers in their time too. Like that's the other thing about it. If you really go back and look at the story, they were too poppy for Gilman. They couldn't play at Gilman till right before they broke. They were too poppy back then for Gilman. So you cannot like their music, but to say they went too popular, they went these directions, means you weren't paying attention, to be honest with you.
Well,
they always had that rock and roll feel to them since like the very beginning. And again, they were too poppy to play at Gilman, which was the center of pop punk in that time period. Like that should kind of tell you everything you need to know about their origins.
Well, Gilman is a perfect example of like how childish punk rockers can be, because we all look at this place as a place that's like it's revered. And it's an important place with a lot of important things. But if you go look at the photograph from the very last Operation Ivy show, Billy Joe's in the shot. So tell me how that guy at that show isn't punk enough to play at your club. Like explain that to me, please. Like I want somebody from that era. So if anybody has a video clip or something explaining it outside of them saying they just were too poppy, because that's a bullshit claim. I mean, this place had the Mr. T Experience playing
in
there.
Gilman. Yes, that's all I'd say. In Gilman.
In Gilman. So like,
that's the signature of Gilman.
Give me a legit reason why they weren't good enough to play there, and I'll listen. Listen.
There isn't.
No, I know. That's why I said I'll listen, because I don't have to.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't exist. And I mean, I will still listen to anybody's argument, but I mean, I just can't imagine. It'd be crazy if there was one. That'd be awesome, because that would be like, whoa, okay, that's a whole video right there. But like, they're the most, unnecessarily hated band in punk rock. And I don't, there's a lot of bands that I love that get a lot of hate though. The Offspring get a lot of hate. Rancid gets a lot of hate. I think it's jealousy. I think it's straight up jealousy. Oh, they write really good songs. That's what poppy means. Oh, they write good music, so I don't like them. No, they need to sound like shit, and they don't need to sing very well. They need to be better at their instruments, and they're cool. But if they sound really good, they sing well, if they can play their instruments really well, if they can get a Grammy award, oh no, like Bro, what are you talking about?
I think you hit what the real part of it is. It's not the typical that sucks because they're big or I'm jealous because they're big. It's not just that they're big. It's that they're big doing the things that we do down here. They look like bums to this day, and they're still up there. They're still playing these 3-chord songs and making a gazillion dollars doing it. That's why, because they actually didn't have to change up that much because they were who they were and just kind of got capitalized on. They never really had to change or do anything. They didn't actually have to freaking sell out. And that's got to drive people insane because they have it both ways. Green Day gets to do their art the way they want to do it and be millionaires. Like they kind of have it both ways. And that's got to really grind some of these guys' gears who have that straight up jealousy for them.
People are going to argue and say that they sold out, right? My counter to that would be that they didn't sell out. When they got the biggest they got was with Dookie. And that album sounds like the two before it, just a little bit better produced, but the songs are the same.
Well,
I mean, hell, there's even some of the same songs on the album.
Yeah, I would argue that Kerplunk is it's poppier than Dookie in a lot of ways. Dookie has more snot in it.
Okay, I'm not going to comment on that yet, but maybe. Okay, here's the thing, is that Green Day, okay, this is the difference between Green Day and Blink-182 to me. Now, I think they're both excellent bands. I love most of everything that they've both put out. I'm a bigger fan of Blink, by the way, so this is not any kind of like shit on Blink thing. But Blink did Dude Ranch, which is about the most punk rock they've ever sounded. And then they did Enema, and you're like, okay, I see what's happening here. Then they did Take Off Your Pants. Then they did Self-Titled, and it's like, okay, they just kept getting more and more and more radio friendly. Whereas Green Day came out and they did Kerplunk, which is like their Dude Ranch. Dookie, which is like their Enema of the State, which is just like Kerplunk, but like you said, maybe even a little more snottier. It's a lot more mature, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. But then they did Insomniac and Nimrod, and both of those albums are like punk rock records. Mm-hmm. So I don't really understand. I don't know. I do think it's all jealousy, man. I can understand some arguments for people that are into like street punk stuff. I get it. Mm-hmm. I do get it because that's my first love too. That, oh, well, they're like a punk rock band and they're a pop punk band. I'll take that. That's fine. They're a pop punk band, but they're like a pop punk band, like capital P, like pop punk. Not like, they're different. I think they're the only, like you said, we've said this a million times on this channel. They're the only kind of band that did what they did. And they're probably only going to be the only band that does it. Like, mm-hmm. I would say it was like, honestly, dude, the Sex Pistols were the first ones that did this kind of like fame and big thing.
Yeah.
And then it was Green Day. And Green Day just completely eclipsed what the Sex Pistols did.
Yeah, because no one did it in the 80s. Punk goes dead in the 80s, basically. And so the punk's popular in the late 70s with the Sid Vicious thing, as you were saying. And then it's popular again in 1994 with Dookie. And then that's the thing, like whether you like it or not, like we're talking about, Dookie's the most important punk album also, I think, of all time too, at least, or of the last 20 years for sure, or whatever, 30 years, because like there might not be punk rock existing in the way that it does and the way that it was spread after that if it doesn't happen. So it's so essential.
I have a response to a reply to that. That just depends on what you find important, because I don't care if punk exists the way it does today. It doesn't matter to me. That just means, are you saying that punk it's the most important because punk wouldn't be as big as it is? Because I don't care about that. That doesn't matter to me. I listen to mostly bands that aren't big anyways.
Because I would have never found it if Dookie didn't exist. That's my point.
Okay, you would have never found it, but I definitely would. So like, it just depends on where you sit.
But if punk would have just stayed the way it was forever in the 80s, like that's fine. But like, I mean, I guess my only point is that it depends on what you think of as important, because I know people that will agree with me and say that's not important. Like to you, it's important because you came around at a different place. Like you were there for a different thing. We're a different age, so we had different things that got us into it. But I don't even know if people would find street punk if it wasn't for Dookie, is what I'm saying, though.
I wholeheartally disagree with that.
I just think it would have just died. It could have just died. Like it could have just died as a whole.
Well, you're saying could have, but I'm saying would it have? Like it's the same. It's the same remark. Would it have? I don't. It could have. Sure, it could have. It could still die from this point, but I don't think that it would have, because I don't have any evidence that it would have. Punk wasn't dead in the 80s. It just wasn't popular in the 80s. Punk was never dead. Like punk always existed. Those bands always toured. They always had shows. They always sold out shows. I mean, Operation Ivy could have come and went without Green Day ever doing their thing, and Operation Ivy still would have formed Rancid. The Offspring still would have existed. Now, would they have gotten as big as they did? I don't know. Probably not. Does that matter? Not to me. See my point?
Yeah, but then I think you never find Rancid. If Dookie didn't exist, you would have never found Rancid. Like seriously, you found Rancid in the mid-90s, like they're never.
I don't agree with that.
Like you don't think like we have a situation where
I think it would have been a different timeline, but I would have found them. Absolutely. I would have absolutely found it. I wholeheartedly, 1,000,000% agree that nothing on this planet would have prevented me from being who I am right now. This is who I am. This is what I do. So I don't think any amount of no Green Day or more Green Day would have changed that. Not that it wasn't important and made it easier. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it wasn't important at all. I'm just saying that if it didn't exist, I don't think that would have been some kind of cataclysmic, oh no, Punk's never been. I mean, No Effects would have been around, Bad Religion would have been around, Operation Ivy, like all these bands that I still love would have been around anyways.
But so, when you like read interviews with any one of those bands, they all acknowledge the reason why they have a career now is because Dookie came out.
Sure, something else would have happened, dude. I'm not gonna concede that because Green Day exists is the only reason that those bands were able to make it. That's stupid. Like, because there would have been another band. It may not have been as big, but there would have been other bands. Because I was into skateboarding already too. Skateboarding is where I got into punk rock like that. Like it, yeah, I would have found it. And, am I saying I would have been on the exact same path? No, because you can't change something like that and have it be the same. Of course not. But I'm just saying that it wouldn't have died because it didn't die. Like, you're saying that punk would have just fizzled out. And I just think like,
there's a strong possibility that punk just wouldn't like really be existed as a thing that.
Well, it depends on what your definition of punk is, because my definition of punk is different than yours, I think, because I don't think of, I don't measure it by that. There's punk, when punk existed, the first time it happened, it was never, ever, ever going to be a point in time where nobody on the planet was doing that. And to me,
but when something gets
stadiums,
when something gets so, no, I'm not saying you do, but when something gets so niche, it will stop spreading though.
Not with the internet, buddy. No, sorry. If the only way that what you're saying could have happened is if the internet didn't exist, and I guess Green Day could be responsible.
Green Day created the internet. Them and Al Gore, they went to the bunker. They created it.
Dude, how funny would it be if that was something that you could actually show me? I could go, damn, all right, because that would blow my mind. No, and I mean, look, dude.
There's like footage of Gilman Street of like.
Look, let me close this chapter of this video out with saying this. I acknowledge that they are probably the most important band in punk rock. I just refuse to acknowledge that they were like the reason that it stayed it would exist anyways. Bands would have gotten big. Bands were getting fairly big without them. I don't think for a second that the Warped Tour wouldn't have happened without Green Day. I don't think that for a split second. Skateboarding itself was getting too big, and if the Warped Tour existed, then these bands would have gotten big. Now, to the degree that they got, probably not, but they would have gotten big.
The feeding, though, that's what I say. Like, what is the desire then for like a Warped Tour without a Green Day? Like that's, and again, because
the Warped Tour wasn't about pop punk. The Warped Tour was about extreme sports and punk rock and roll. It wasn't about pop punk,
right?
I don't look at
but I still think like they caused this big bang that made everything kind of popular that trickled down. It just had such a trickle effect.
I'm not going to give Green Day that much credit. I'm just not going to, because I don't think they deserve it. So not that much credit. They deserve a lot of credit, not that much, because that stuff was happening before Green Day was popular. Before Green Day existed, this stuff existed. So there's no reason for me to believe that it would have not existed.
People with wallets weren't pouring nowhere near as much money into it until Green Day existed.
That doesn't matter. That's my whole point. I know that.
Helps. That helps a lot.
I didn't say it didn't. Mm-hmm. Dude, I'm not arguing that doesn't help. I'm not arguing that it does a lot for the community. But I am saying that that's not what matters to most people that are in my specific position. Now, other people's positions, I don't know. I'm not going to speak on that. But my personal opinion is that shit doesn't matter that much. Look at all the stuff that I do that I don't make a stinking penny for, right? Mm-hmm. I don't make any money. Now, if I make some money, would I be happy? Of course. But would I stop doing it if I didn't make money? I can show you proof positive that I wouldn't. That's my point. Is that there's going to be somebody carrying this torch no matter what happened. Now, I don't want to start shitting on Green Day, so let's move on. because I love Green Day, bro. Like this band's great, and this, going back into these records, this was a lot of fun, man. I had a lot of fun listening to these albums. So let's move on to So Rob's gonna carry this episode for the most part, and he's gonna do his top 5, and mine are gonna be probably a lot quicker. So I do love that conversation, though, man. I think it's important to talk about it because I do think there's going to be 2 camps, and I don't think that they should fight about it. We weren't really fighting about it. We have a different opinion. But we're not fighting about it.
And we're not really even disagree. We're talking about really semantic counterfactual.
Yeah. My opinion was just that it wouldn't fizzle out, and you thought that there was a big chance that it might have. Those are pretty similar opinions, actually. So might have and wouldn't are very close. Well, they are. That it could have. It's just as
but it's funny because it sounds like. But yeah, it's funny.
It sounds dumb, but it's
that's what podcasts are. That's
yes.
The stupidity of podcasts. We just proved our conversation proved it, and our analyzing of our conversation.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is what we like to do.
It is
like people get all confused. So like, bro, you guys or not you guys, but they'll be like, man, you think you know everything. I'm like, well, yeah, like I do.
Yeah, most people.
No, I don't. I don't think I know everything.
Most people are confident in what they say when they say it, right? Especially if you're on a podcast.
Yeah, no, I have no problem being wrong about something and having to be like, oh, okay. Like why is that a bad thing, bro? Okay, cool. I was wrong. Sorry. We were just talking. Was it hurting anybody? No. Well then, fuck you. Like, bro. Ooh, man. All right. Well, Green Day rules.
So Green Day does rule, and it was fun going through this. I went through just about
Doyle rules. Sorry.
I went through just about everything, except for I kind of like breezed through the back half of the catalog for a couple of reasons. One,
okay,
I got all that first run. Like Green Day, I never really missed an album for. Even like years I wasn't into really punk, like I said, and that's why I made that comment earlier. Like you could always kind of catch them, so I would just go check it out. I generally liked the radio hit that Green Day put out on all those later albums, but I just don't like them that much as albums. Really, after American Idiot, I kind of felt like something just kind of fell off just a hair, and it never reached what American Idiot was. Although the potential is definitely there with what we got coming up. But the whole gap in between, I went through them fairly quickly. There's good songs on all of them, but I kept them all just away from the list. I don't think anything really deserves.
Okay. So are you saying that you don't have anything on your top 5 post American Idiot?
Correct.
Okay. So my response to that would be like, cool. Yeah, probably a good call. But the
spoiler.
So with their later albums, I was thinking about this, and I want to let you get to your list, but I do want to ask you a question.
Sure.
It felt to me like with their later records, they had no reason to be angry. Like in between American Idiot and what we have now, our country kind of was in a weird, like kind of okay spot. Like we were arguing a little bit and things were changing, but like we were kind of okay. There's some turmoil right now. So they got these new songs that are like pissed off and angry. Now, are they going to be all about that? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But American Idiot is about the last time I can think of where we had some like real troubling things happening and we weren't sure what was going to happen. And we got real complacent after that. And I feel like that's evident in their music. Like you can look at it and go, oh yeah, they were also feeling kind of complacent. They were kind of like putting out music, doing the song and dance because that's what they do. But there was no urgency behind it. There was no, there was no urgency behind it. There was no need for it like right now.
Mm-hmm. No, and I hadn't thought about that part of it, but that's definitely the case. Definitely the case with music with punk rock in general.
Yeah, I was thinking that as I was saying that. I was like,
it's just like I remember. I think when Anti-Flag put out American Spring, they said like someone had to have a punk record a political punk record in the Obama era because they're just like they weren't coming out anymore. So that was like the 90s had a different sort of effect because everyone's still like, even if life is good for people in the 90s, they were just pissed off in general. So Green Day fits into that, right? Like Green Day, like that snottiness. Like the 90s are supposed to be like the roaring 90s, they're kind of called now and stuff. But still, it's but Nirvana was the biggest band, and then nu metal took over, and that was all pissed off. So the pop culture was pissed off in the 90s, even if the public was kind of happy. And I think like the
dude, I have fond memories of the 90s, but it was an angry decade. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like everyone's wallets were doing good, like much better than at any time in the last 20 years, but everyone's just pissed off and everything's kind of reflective. And like I hate maybe just I got a little bit older, but I hate like 2005 to like I don't know, like last year. Like I hate that whole time period and like all of culture and everything, because everything feels so freaking boring to me. And more music than anything. It's like I got into other forms of entertainment, but it was music. It was really like kind of indie rock started taking off and that stuff. And I just felt music got boring. Even the punk I kind of got boring in that era. I thought everything
social media started around then. Yeah.
You know,
and it really did. It made specifically punk rock a little bit watered down, a little bit boring, a little lazy, a little bit easy. Mm-hmm. And punk rock's not supposed to be easy, man. Like it's just not. It's supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be abrasive. It's supposed to be DIY. Like that stuff is what. This is why bands like Blink-182 are not a punk rock band, because they're not any of those things. And it's okay. Like I didn't say that. And they suck. I said they're not this, and people take that as me saying some kind of crazy thing, and that's okay. But like that's why I think that punk rock was kind of fizzling out, because it was fizzling out. Everything was fizzling out, and now we're in a point in time where things are kind of crazy again. People aren't happy with each other. There's a lot of angst and anger and disarray in our country, and people are pissed off, and that's it's very clear.
And it's prime breeding ground for good art. Usually, it's what social media has killed, like that kind of art good art
in general. Yes,
people are just
music.
When people are just expressing themselves on this thing, like it doesn't come out the same. It's much better through, as we said, through art. So my hopes are high. So I'll just say that there. So everything's kind of in this era. So my two outside looking ins were the two prior to them making it big. I had 39 Smooth as my number 7. Just want to put that out there. Listen to it. I didn't listen to that in a long, long time. I listened to that a couple of times over the weekend. I have is it the song Rest, the second to last song? It's like kind of slow and ballady. And I could not believe how young these guys were. And that was like the level of like that could have been like, with a little bit of production, that could have been on American Idiot. It could have been like next to When September Ends. It was like, God, these guys were teenagers, and like Trey's not even in the band yet, and it sounds that good.
Sorry, I have to retort. I have a comment on that, because I was thinking of that a lot when I was listening to these old albums. Like, dude, I don't think people realize how operatic and big this band's music was when they were kids, and I do think that Trey made the band significantly better.
Yeah, and so part of that, like sort of that pivot with Dookie, I think, and we'll talk about that in a minute. That's also like Trey's second album in the band too. So like I think that has a lot to do with it, because we talked about punk being their sort of base. Well, in the way that they are pop punk, if we want to say that, it's different than like Blink is the Beatles. Blink is boy band. Blink kind of goes to that era, that sort of pop music. What Green Day does, they don't actually lean into that. What they lean into is actually the most unpunk thing ever. They lean into classic rock a ton like since the beginning. And then on these later albums that I don't like, I think they lean a lot into it, because in my opinion, they found a kind of like a medium with it on American Idiot. And then after that, the operatic and the classic rock thing kind of took over. So it's almost like, and I mean classic rock specifically, it's like the stuff that's on rock radio, like on the rock radio station that your uncle that runs the auto shop is like probably blasting now. They fit in actually, even though like they're like the people who would have listened to that first run or in the auto shop probably hate Green Day and think they're a bunch of lame kids, but Green Day very much is inspired by that stuff. And it is evidence from the beginning that is, like I have right here. It says Road to Acceptance starts out like a Rush song. That's what I have written in my notes, because he kind of sounded like Rush, which is just funny. Like that it's this Gilman Street band of teenagers that have that. But that is really, so you say their ambitions, like some bands, their ambitions were to be big and famous. It doesn't seem like Green Day really ever thought about that. Just when that opportunity was there, they took it.
It just happened.
Their ambitions, though, I think, were to be like a big ass rock band. Like when I saw them a couple weeks ago and they were just playing Queen songs right before they went out, it was like, that's a good analog for them. I thought like Queen and that sort of theatric, that's like a perfect analog for them. And then when you push it forward, like from them, the first show that Billy Joel ever went to was a Van Halen show. And I commented a few weeks ago randomly, like David Lee Roth. I'm like, Billy Joel now too, he's a better musician than David Lee Roth ever was. And he's also like better at the David Lee Roth frontman, like performance aspect of it too. And I'm like, damn, that's crazy that like, that was his first show. It's kind of a fun factoid. And going back to the 39 Smooth era, the first show they were ever called Green Day was that Gilman was the final Operation Ivy show. They were Sweet Children every other. So the first show they were branded as Green Day. Well, no, not branded as Green. The first show they were ever able to play at Gilman. When they were finally allowed into Gilman was the show, which was technically Op Ivy's second to last show because they played the next day at like the buddy's house. But the farewell show, the album release party was the first show that Green Day ever had at Gilman. So talking about the pages and eras too. That like that first little part of it is the Op Ivy, and then Green Day takes over like boom, like immediately.
Well, yeah, that's like one door closing as another's opening, like simultaneously. It's like boom, and man. Yeah, dude, this band's interesting. I don't know. Is it weird that like Green Day is kind of like Billy Joe's band, even though it's not?
What do you mean by that? Like
I feel like they all three contribute equally, and they're definitely necessary to be in that band. I can't imagine one of those guys being gone and it being the same band. But every time I see Green Day or anything, it's always Billy Joe. I don't know how to say what I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it seems like it's his band, yet we all know it's not.
Yeah, I would. So I think both things are true in what you're saying because I think it's a very like it's one. There's only 3 people, even though 5 people play with them consistently. It's one of the bands that everyone can name every member like kind of off the top of their head with no problem. And there's a lot of unique personality I think with all 3 members. With that said, Billy Joe, as I was saying, like the David Lee Roth thing, he's so huge as a frontman, and he's a bit of like an icon and an avatar for like a whole culture and society.
Yeah.
Couple of different ways. Like, so me as a teenager, it's what like I was definitely in the like Billy Joe was kind of like my guy, and even though I didn't listen to a ton of Green Day always back then, but just like this snotty kid, I would wear the button down black shirts with the red tie and all that.
Oh, really? I would have been caught dead wearing that shit.
So I was really, I was really into that like archetype, and I've always thought like they've been on The Simpsons so much because they are kind of like the Simpsons of pop culture. Like they're mainstream enough to be on Fox, but they're always kind of having that little bit of a middle finger at the especially like classic era Simpsons. And Trey Cool literally looks like Bart Simpson.
Dude.
So yeah, it's where we even started with that.
I never heard of that, but that's funny because it's accurate.
That's what they. So when I say they're the architect, so like and I was never like overly diagnosed as hyperactive, but just to be like just the snotty kid with that snotty. It's the same effect that Fat Mike does. It's just a little bit different version of it. With a little bit different polish.
Honestly, it's more PG because Fat Mike says and does things that are explicitly adult oriented.
Right.
And Green Day just kind of says general audience stuff.
And Green Day, with that said, like when Dookie came out, they still are a punk band, and that there was literally like a riot at every show they played at for like the first half of that tour because you just can't get that many people listening to that much music in one small place at one time.
Dude, I have this like distinct memory, and now I can't remember what year Dookie came out in.
94.
But 94. Okay, so it was already considered like a classic record when I graduated because I graduated in I was supposed to graduate in 2000. I did not. Anyways, I distinctly remember at my graduation, like I don't know what it was called. It's like a pre-graduation like party thing. I didn't really want to be there.
Like an official thing? Like a robing or something like that?
From the school was doing it. It was out in the football field because we had a real nice day one day, and it was like everybody had to be there. And the only reason I went is because my 2 best friends were going to be there, and I was always getting into trouble, so I never got to see them. And so I went, and I remember standing outside, and they played Nirvana, and then they played Smashing Pumpkins, and I was like, I hate this music. And which is funny because Nirvana was the biggest band in the world, and Smashing Pumpkins fixing a tour with Green Day. And then all of a sudden, they played Come Out and Play. And I was like, there we go. Then they played Green Day, a couple of Green Day songs. Then they played a Rancid song, and it blew my mind. They only played one the whole day. They played Time Bomb, and I couldn't believe it. But what was I getting at? I don't know. It was just like this weird thing, man. Like back then, I don't remember, man. I was going somewhere with that, and I am not keeping track of my thoughts very well today. My apologies. Yeah, I guess it was just a memory I wanted to point out, I guess. I don't know. But I have a very distinct memory of that day and listening to that music and being like, dang, this stuff's already this old. It's already like, it's everywhere. Like, they already had another album out, and they were playing stuff off of Dookie. Like, they had other stuff. In the year 2000, they already had, another 2 albums?
No, they had Insomniac, Nimrod, and Warning came out in 2000.
Okay, so they already probably had...
Basically had, like, their career, like a Hall of Fame career
So they had... Okay, this is before Warning came out.
So
to my knowledge.
They
were still playing songs off Dookie, bro. That was my point. That's how big that record was, dude. I can't believe I remember what I was trying to say. Is that record was so big. I think this is what I was trying to say. It's definitely a point I want to make. is that 4 years later, when I'm outside at a high school graduation, they're playing those songs. They were playing Offspring. They played, I don't know who was the person playing this music, but it was clearly somebody that had like guitar-driven music as their favorite, because they didn't play no R&B, no hip-hop. It was all like rock and roll-based stuff, but there was like about 10 or 11 songs that day that I would consider like heavier, more edgy stuff, and it was like the Nirvana and the Smashing Pumpkins, and then there's a lot of classic rock stuff. They always play that stuff in there at those things, but yeah, even in 99, 2000, Dookie was still so important that they were playing those songs over their current hits, which I think is bananas.
Right, and they had major hits after Dookie, like
major.
Good Riddance was the biggest song in the world in like 1990. It's part of the biggest TV event of the 90s, and it's there like it's a huge moment.
I don't want to act like they didn't play that song because they probably played that 6 times.
Yeah.
But they did play Dookie a lot. I couldn't believe it. They played like 7 songs off Dookie, like half the album. It was weird. Anyways, I think that's what I was trying to talk about, but I don't know.
Billy Joe is saying that he knew like he had jumped the shark when this high school cheerleading team sent him the video of them doing a dance to a Green Day. And this is like now again, Green Day is kind of classic rock, so that's probably not that uncommon. But like still thinking of themselves as like an alternative punk band, and like the cool chicks in like 2001 are making a dance routine out of your song. And you're a Gilman Street kid. That has to just absolutely blow your mind. So I wanted to just say number 6. I had Kerplunk at number 6. I actually I like Kerplunk a lot. The one thing is I appreciate the production of Dookie. I really do. I think Green Day sounds better with production. I think there's a lot of other bands that you like, the production messed them up or the production didn't do it well. I actually think the production, it was really, really welcome for Green Day. Like, I don't know if they would have stood out to me against all those other Lookout bands with just this stuff. Like obviously people did identify it and so like I would have been wrong in the time period, but like I kind of understand if like Green Day wasn't your thing next to those other Lookout bands from this era. Especially this album feels like it's a little bit like everything's a little slow on this album, and I don't know if it's
Kerplunk.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like there's something that's like at a half speed, or if it's like, I don't know if it's down tuned or something, where like his voice is slightly deeper. It's like there's a certain polish that's on Dookie. Like, and maybe I'm thinking maybe specifically on the Welcome to Paradise re-edit stuff. That's the opposite of tuning. They tune down on Dookie, but there's something about the way that album sounds that I just don't necessarily love, which keeps it out of my
that's
top
so
5.
funny.
I wanted to have it a little bit higher.
Literally the opposite for me. I love the way that record sounds. I like his vocals way better on that album probably than anyone that they've ever made. Like, is it my number 1? I'll just tell you right now, no, it's not. Mm-hmm. But it's like my favorite vocals that they ever did. And they also have so they have some really good stuff on that record. It's a good record. But is it top 5? Who knows, man? I don't know. It's definitely not a number 1, but it's interesting. It's definitely, when I listened to it, I did 2 complete listens because I was like, damn, I haven't heard this in like, dude, it might be 20 years since I've heard that record. And I was like, man, since I was never the big Green Day guy, I guess I just fell into a different lane, man. Because I was never the Fat Records guy either. I must have just been an Epitaph dude since day 1, man. Because that's all
all those bands.
Do what?
When we do those episodes, all those bands like
very well. Yeah. And so I guess that's just the lane I fell in. But yeah, man, I really like the production on Kerplunk or the lack thereof, and I like the vocals. I will say though, you can tell there was different sessions on that record because the songs sound different towards like the end, like the last quarter of the record. There's parts of songs that sound like they were completely different recording sessions because the mixing and mastering wasn't done very well. And
it's uneven through different.
That's the word I'm looking for. Uneven.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's. I'm gonna mute myself real quick. I'm listening still. Give me 1 second. Continue. Let's get on to number 5 if you want.
Okay. Now, so for the proper list, now this was kind of hard because I knew my top 2, but after that, everything was just kind of up for grabs. And then I did have something that snuck into the top 5, which I was not expecting at all. But we'll get into that in a minute. So at number 5, I ended up going with Insomniac. Now that went down a little bit from where I had it. Like in the top of my head, it's like, yeah, Insomniac, it was right there. It was right after Dookie. It's right up there. And I have it in my top 5. So clearly it's an album I very, very much like. I just think when you compare it to nearly everything else I have on this list, it falls just slightly short. And I say just slightly short again at number 5. It's got some of the great songs of all time. I love Gink Stink Breath. Obviously, you have the Brain Stew Jaded combo, which I got to tell you, seeing that with like 100,000 people is insane.
I would imagine
because it's the other thing is that's one of those songs everybody knew all the lyrics to.
I love that song. Or those songs.
And like it's one I've been playing on my guitar since I was literally in the 8th grade because it was that simple. I think it was maybe like the first or second song I ever learned, kind of how to play. And again, when I think of that archetype, when I think of it on Dookie, it's Longview. That's why I think like the Billy Joel, like the character. And then when I think when you go to Insomniac, it's the Brain Stew guy. Like he's moved on from Longview to Brain Stew. I kind of look at those. Of course, Armitage Shanks, the opener, and then Walking Contradiction, which I think is a song that a lot of people like and have a lot of fondness for. It's a really solid album. I do think they tried to go in a few different directions right after Dookie to not necessarily remake Dookie. And that's why it falls a little short of, basically, spoiler for my list, kind of everything else around it. I think it's a little bit of trying things and a little bit uneven as an album. Because I think in general, like, Green Day seems like a band that almost has like theme albums, and I don't get the sense that Insomniac necessarily has like a theme, like straight up the American Idiot like is a concept album, but like in general, I think their albums are very like have very common themes or feels to them. I don't think Insomniac quite has an identity like that.
Well, I think we're about to have a very interesting conversation.
Oh,
because based on what you said a minute ago, I'm not trying to be like slick. Something you said a second ago, we're gonna have a very interesting conversation here in a little bit. Insomniac's a great record. I think that's the record that got me to be a fan of the band. I didn't like Dookie when it first came out, like even a little bit. I didn't care about it. I don't like the song Longview at all. Like I think it's a terrible song. What's the other ones on that record? Hold on, let me think.
So Longview, She, When I Come Around, Welcome to Paradise, the second one.
Let me think. Out. Okay, hold on. When I Come Around, Welcome to Paradise. Which one of those do I not like? One of those. No. That's When I Come Around, right? The real slow, like brooding one. Okay, yeah. I like that one. It's the other one that I don't like.
So Welcome to Paradise is very fast. It's the one.
Welcome to Paradise.
She maybe.
No. Welcome to Paradise, and then Longview. That's the one. That's like boom, 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 boom. Yeah. I hate that song. Those two songs are not my favorite at all. And when those got really big, that's part of why I didn't really like Green Day much for a long time. So when Insomniac came out, it rejuvenated my interest in the band, and I was able to go back and listen. And I had Dookie. I didn't not buy it because I didn't like two songs. It was a very good record, top to bottom. I mean, honestly, those might be the only two songs I really don't like on the record, which is odd because they're two of the big hits. But
it's a pretty deep record.
I've always been left of center, dude. If something's popular, I've always been like, nah. Even if it's like subconscious, or even if it's on purpose, I'm just going, no, I'm going to choose to not like that because it's popular. It is what it is. That's just part of my personality. But yes, continue.
Yeah, and it's funny how we measure success with these things, especially when record sales were the only thing, because like Dookie is this insanely successful album, one of the most insanely successful albums of the 90s and of the SoundScan era. Well, every other one of the Green Day albums is also one of the most successful albums at the 90s. They just all kind of look like flops in comparison to what Dookie
Isn't that
did.
Weird?
It's so funny.
Like, we only sold 2.6 million copies of this. That sucks. Like, all right, bro, whatever. I sold 46 copies of my record. Thanks.
Yeah. It's like most bands would kill to have the career of like the worst. They would kill to have the lookout career that Green Day had. And it's just,
man, for real.
And so I think though, like Dookie, and this happened to Metallica with the Black Album, happened with the Guns N' Roses with Appetite for Destruction. When you put out an album that's so big, like you're always sort of chasing that ghost. And I think like Green Day had a little bit of a trouble with that in the 90s. And I made a whole video about this where,
do you really think that?
Yes, but let me explain my rationale.
Okay.
They lost a certain like with it factor for a little bit because Dookie was so big. You were just saying they were playing it at like the 2000 graduation. Like the album was so big. So there was a bit of the weight of expectation. They grew their audience huge. They kept growing their audience by going into honestly like some alternative rock stuff and that stuff like that was continuously growing the audience, but they kind of lost a bit of a cool factor pretty quick along the process where right after Dookie, they went from being like the Gilman band that had gone big to like, they were just like a straight up big band with these late 90s albums. And they were kind of, I felt like they were way more categorized with like alternative rock than they were with punk rock at all at that point. And they felt really like uncool or even like old compared to like the younger stuff that was coming up and starting to pop and seemed a little
uncool to who? Punk rockers?
To young people, to young.
I don't agree with that at all. Cause I was a young person when that was all happening. And I can tell you without a doubt they were a cool band all the way. Like not necessarily to the punk rock scene, but to normies and skateboarders and like MTV kids. They were cool, man. They were, everybody loved Green Day, dude. That's one of the reasons why I didn't like Dookie, because everybody liked it. And I was like, well, I don't want to be part of what everybody likes. The people that like this are beating the shit out of me in my gym class. I'm good, bro. Like, so, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I hated nu metal so much. It's because all the people that liked it were just pricks. And then, you know, but no, I would say we're probably both a little bit right. There's probably points where you can look from this vantage point and go, okay, yeah, Rob's correct. And then look where I'm sitting and go, okay, yeah, he's right too. So it's probably a little bit of both, but I don't think that they were just like all of a sudden uncool. They were just not, they weren't cool with punk rockers, and that's who we associated with. So it was a little different. It's hard to kind of figure out objectively where they sat.
Well, and I'll say it like this: even amongst non-punk rockers, like we talked about, they went on the Pop Disaster tour in 2002 with Blink-182. Now, there's two narratives from that tour, which is ironic that they were linked together back then. One, which is absolutely true, is if you went to see the show, I keep saying Guns N' Roses and Metallica, but there's an analog there. You realize what one of these two bands really knows how to play, and one of these bands is just kind of good live. And that way, like Green Day blew them away. However,
I've known about that since then.
However, Blink consistently had like huge crowds compared to Green Day. It was just like Green Day was just not with. I think I'm talking about more of like that MTV surge that was going on. Green Day was sort of like, they weren't really part of like.
Well, they were before that though.
They were before that, yeah. But they're sort of like, they're not really part of that. They're not really part of punk rock. They're just kind of stuck in alternative rock through a lot of that late 90s period. It's not until American Idiot where they're sort of recut, because I mean, like Reprise was gonna drop them, like, and again, their sales were not down. They just weren't hip anymore. Like they were just sort of on, like, again, Duke, and you know, the time had gone on. It had been a while. Like the world had been, new metal had come. There'd been like 5 different trends, and even as like pop punk was popping again, they weren't even really a part of it.
Okay, maybe from that perspective, you're onto something, but I don't recall ever since 1995 that Green Day wasn't a cool band. Like I just don't. I don't know. I don't know that. I don't think it exists, because now were they like the #1 band? Because they were for a while. And did they like kind of slow down a little bit? Yeah, of course, man. But I don't. I think that band is so damn big that even if they have 1 million fans, you're like, yeah, but they kind of fizzled out. You're like, yeah, but they had 1 million fans.
Yeah, well, they were never starving. Like, you know that I just said, it's not like they were ever going to be like, you know.
Yeah,
like
yeah, I see your point. That's
and really, it's just the superficiality of when you reach the level of like fame that they did. You're only going to be sort of faded, like you know.
Yeah. Like, what goes up must come down.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. But it's funny because again, they just have these huge albums in that meantime, and then they would go on to reclaim their spot and never really gave it back once they kind of went back and reclaimed the spot. Part of that because the rest of music sort of fell off a cliff, like rock music fell off a cliff. So
they made some important music at a really odd time. Like they came back in the mid 2000s and were like, oh, don't forget about us, fool.
Which I kind of feel like they're doing that again. Like that's almost the thesis now too.
Dude, I'm not gonna even mince words, dude. They have the best stuff out right now as far as like the new pop punk revival stuff. Green Day's got the better music. I'm sorry, dude. Blink-182 fans say whatever they want, but the Blink-182 songs sound really kind of pretty or whatever. But the drums are like robotic. I don't want to bag on Blink. I like the new album. It's good. But the Green Day songs are better. Just like hard stop. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I like how you're like, I'm not going to talk about that because I don't want to.
Like, no, because we have a whole, you and I think have a podcast stored about that. I don't even disagree with it. I just don't got, I got the energy.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me go to my number 4. So number 4 was my shocker.
Okay.
This one I didn't expect. And it dovetails to the conversation we were just having. Okay. Going back through and listening, I have Warning at number 4, and I am stunned that I have Warning that high. I hated Warning as a kid.
I'm stunned you have Warning that high.
As a snotty, 2000, I'm in the 8th grade. I personally in that era thought Green Day was the most uncool thing when Warning came out. So maybe that's why I've sought out that perspective through all these years.
Well,
because I was like, this is lame acoustic. I didn't know the term dad rock, but that's exactly what I thought Warning was when it came out.
I guess from that perspective, I have to concede that you're maybe a little more right, because Warning came out and people just didn't get it. I think in like 20 years, Warning is going to be considered like one of their best records.
It happened to me. Literally, it took 20 years for me to
we'll talk about Warning again in a little while. Like, because it's a good record, man. And the thing, well, I'll get to my opinion on that in a few minutes.
Let me see. First of all, I did own it. It's funny. I think I owned all these 90s ones, but I have like a weird way of getting a hold of every single. It's just so the 90s work. You didn't just download stuff. You know, like, so I had Dookie. Bought it. Yeah, but I had like Dookie on cassette, and I had this one. I had Dookie and Warning on cassette for different reasons. One, because I found Dookie at a flea market. Nice. Which was kind of cool. Because like, hey, I know Green Day. Cool. I like them. And I didn't even really have the context of what Dookie was. I just knew him as like the Brain Stew band. And I had him out there. And then I had this album, even though I already knew I didn't like it because I'd already heard it. But there'd be times when cassettes were still sold first run that randomly they'd be like $2. Like normally they were like $11. And then every now and then they'd be like $2. Or certain ones would be like $2. And one day I was like, I know I don't like this Green Day one, but I'm going to get it because I like Green Day and I'm kind of getting into it. And that's like in 2000. And I listened to it like 3 times and I didn't. So 8th grade me did not vibe with Warning at the time.
I have a weird Warning story too that I'll tell you real quick because it's not long. The way I acquired Warning, also on cassette, oddly enough, was, you know how back in the day, I don't know if they do this anymore or not because I don't go to Walmart very often anymore, but way back when Walmart would have these baskets in the front of their store where people put returns and then they would divide them all up and then they had employees that would come and get a basket, and it would be a particular part of the store. It was labeled on a basket or whatever, right?
They go restock it,
Somebody's job was to go and divvy it up into each basket, which each basket meant something, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm walking out one day, and you know how the cassette tapes had the piece of plastic on them so you couldn't get them out of the store?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that is what broke or something, but somebody had put the Green Day Warning tape in the basket to get put back on the shelf.
Yeah.
And they didn't put it in that thing very well. So I was standing by the bathroom. I think I was waiting on my girlfriend. It was either my girlfriend or my buddy John. I can't remember who was with me. But I was just standing there and I had like a cigarette in my hand. I was like flipping it around. And I looked down and I was like, that Green Day tape. And I was like, wait a minute. And I picked it up. And when I picked it up, that plastic part fell right off of it. And I went, whoop, put it in my back pocket and walked out the door. And so that's how I got a copy of Warning, was I just stole it from Walmart. So thank you, Walmart.
So and in 2000, that's what I thought the value of it was probably worth. But no, honestly, and I, again, when I made the Green Day video, my thesis was about this early 2000 stuff, and I went back and I acknowledged like, hey, these are good songs, but you know, it's a little is what it is. But no, these are great songs. I still don't necessarily love them though. Like I still would have liked them to take these songs and just like reproduce them as like something else, because I'm still kind of, I'm not bored with it anymore, but it's still not my cup of tea. Like it's still not my vibe. I just acknowledge these songs are like amazing. Like you put these songs, I think, into like the American Idiot, not the political frame, but just like the level that they were they were operating on that album. And I think this is just one of the classics. Wherein right now I feel like it's definitely the one that sticks out from like American Idiot to Dookie. It's the one that's kind of falls out of place.
Since my portion of this video is probably going to be pretty quick, so I'll just talk about it for a second. I think that Warning is way beyond his time. It was a Clash record, dude. That's what Warning was. It was a folk punk Clash record. And it was at a time where that stuff wasn't cool. But I bet you if you asked Tim Armstrong, hey, what do you think about Warning? He'll give you 3 hours of why it's an amazing record, right? Because people that play that kind of music understand shit about that record that we're not going to even know. Like things that me and you aren't going to get. But I like the guitar tone on that record. I like the production on it. And I like some of the songs. What I don't like is how long they are. Every song could have been 2 minutes and 25 seconds or shorter, and it would have made that record 3 or 4 times better. And it is on my top 5. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. But yeah, I think that I'm very surprised to see that you have that on your top 5. I was thinking you were going to go to. Yeah,
I was stunned. Like it was just, I felt like I really wasn't even going to give it that much of a chance. I was just going to do it sort of but I did it kind of out of obligation, and I just kind of got sucked into it. And it's that type of album too, that like, you know, you're not going to enjoy it when you're driving necessarily talking. And
no, that's when I like it. Oh,
no, yeah, like no, but like I'm saying, like when you got like the vibe going, you're doing a bunch of things. But no, if like I'm driving to work or I have a long drive, I think Warning would be the perfect album to sort of just like meditate on.
It's a zone out record, bro. And we need those, man. Zone out records are good. Also, if you think about the song Minority, I thought that was on a different record. It sounds like Nimrod song.
Yeah, there's a song on Nimrod too that I thought was on this one. I think maybe Walking Contradiction. I don't know, but no, like the second song on Nimrod, I thought forever until literally like 30 minutes ago when I was listening to Nimrod.
Isn't that weird though?
I want to just find it real quick so I don't commit this to memory. Hitching a Ride. I thought Hitching a Ride was on.
Oh, that's a great song.
Like the last.
Yo, that does sound like a Warning song. It's funny
because there's like almost like a marching band to it, and there's like a lot of marching band in Warning.
That tells you how bad the record wasn't, because if we can get it confused with other records that I know you like, then clearly it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does have, though, this is where that folk styling, I think they actually brought a piece of that to American Idiot that we don't really realize, but they kind of turned that into the more operatic styling, but that's sort of, it originates, you see the root of that. But it's funny because after they made Warning, they got together to make the next album, and that's why they almost like freaking broke up, because like they did not like the material that they were coming up with post Warning, and it was one of those things where they were all living in different cities, they were all trying to they were just kind of like, I guess they were going through like middle age.
They were growing up, dude. They were just they were becoming different people. We all do it.
And I think it was
I remember some rumors.
Their management told them to like go home to start to do a new album. I think like they were like just and it's funny because you hear this every night. MXPX had an album like that where the people just heard him like, no, this you guys can do better. And I think it was really, that's when Billy Joel was watching like the news basically and kind of just diving back into politics, and the inspiration for all that came up. But obviously we've talked about it a lot of times. We'll talk about that in a minute.
I love stories about how these records are made. It's amazing. I love how Indestructible was made. I love how American Idiot was made. I love how some of the, what's the NoFX record? War and Errorism was made. I love how Less Than Jake records were made. I love hearing this stuff because it's so cool to hear like, no, man, they actually wrote 12 songs, scrapped all of them, dude. They had to go back because they were not happy. That's why we have such a freaking rad record now, because they weren't happy with what they were, I love stuff like that, man. The lore behind these records is so fun to talk about. Sorry, I think
it's called Coffee and Cigarettes. Some of the lost recordings have surfaced, and they're not terrible. Like they would have been hits, but it's like, oh, they just didn't feel it. Like it was not felt.
They're too good a band to not be writing hit records, so I think anything they would have put out with. But if you look at it though, Warning's the one with the least amount of hits on it. Minority's the only one I could even come up with.
Yeah. I thought Macy's Day Parade was a hit, but I just knew the song.
Not really. It's just popular kind of.
Yeah. Okay. So, and we've talked about this album a lot, an album that I didn't realize, I thought I didn't like this one as much until I went back and listened to that. And that is Nimrod. And I think it's just because, again, it's like, it's cliche. Green Day's so popular in this era, yada, 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 literally yada, yada, yada is tied to this record. But again, Hitching a Ride, Redundant, which is a song that I just I hear every now and then, and I just remember how good of a song it is. Platypus, which is an insane song. You got the instrumental, which they have a lot of instrumental songs throughout their discography. One of the very few like pop punk bands that really that really has this. And of course, King for a Day, which is a really good song and one I've been listening to forever. But the closer, Prosthetic Head, is one that I just really get down to. My only criticism of this album after going through it, I went through it this morning and then I listened to it again right before, just like make sure that like I was going to have it this high and I felt good about it. It just takes a long time to get through it. It's just very long. The songs aren't particularly long, but there's 18 of them. When I get to
mine, I have the exact same complaint. And when you see where this album places, you're going to go, oh, that's hilarious, because that was my complaint. And I think it would have ranked higher had it not been because of the length of it.
Mm-hmm. And it's a solid album. And I kind of conflated this one a little bit with Warning. I thought, well, they were a little more alternative back then, weren't they? And I'm just thinking of Good Riddance. It's like, no. The rest of the album actually, it's actually more similar to Dookie, I think, than what Insomniac was. I think Insomniac is actually is a little bit different. I think this one was actually more of a natural successor to Dookie, just that's in terms of sound and stuff like that. I think it's a little less experimental than how Insomniac came across.
Well, Good Riddance was the song that, oh, they're a different band now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're capable of bigger and better things, is my point. They're no longer pigeonholed into being just a punk band. Mm-hmm. They are a punk band that can do whatever they want. Honestly, it's very reminiscent of stuff like Rancid did with Life Won't Wait. We're like, oh, they're not just... So they can keep making stuff like Tomorrow Never Comes, but don't forget, dude, they can make a Life Won't Wait record. It's the same kind of thing. Oh, they can still do Dookie songs. They can still play Insomniac, Kerplunk. don't forget they can do this Good Riddance thing, man. And then boom, American Idiot. You're like, oh yeah, duh. Like, no kidding. No wonder. But if you listen to Good Riddance and then go listen to Warning, go play that song and then play that record and tell me you don't see, oh, okay. That was a natural progression. Because if they were writing this song, then no wonder Warning sounds how it sounds.
And I think Good Riddance had been around for years, but it was actually a much faster song for years. And then it was just one of those things that kind of slowed down for the album, or it one of those like classic album stories that kind of not meant to be. And
I was gonna say I heard some stuff about it. I just can't remember what it was that I heard.
Yeah, I think it was from a few albums back that they had that sort of had laying around. And it's funny though because that song was a big hit on its cycle. Like people forget this. On its own, it was a huge single, and then it being tied to the last episode of Seinfeld, which this is the 90s. Probably the last TV event of that scale that will ever exist in human history. The theme song of it was a Green Day song. And that just shows.
I didn't know that. I don't like Seinfeld.
Yeah. So the last episode of Seinfeld was accompanied by like a little montage with Green Day's Tommy, and that got played over and over. Again,
wow.
If you remember when Seinfeld was ending in 1998, like I said, that was probably the last major TV event that'll ever be on that. Like the Las Vegas Strip, we were just there, was empty during the last episode of Seinfeld because people were watching the last episode of Seinfeld.
Shut up.
Yeah.
It was that big.
It was that type of event. And like I said, like that's right before the internet really blows up. So we're never even going to have an event, something that's not like a Super Bowl or like a 9/11.
I will concede that we will not have something like that again because the internet does exist.
Right. And so Green Day was tied to that. And it's also like,
that's cool.
That era though, Nimrod, you say, and here you talk about that coolness factor. And another thing I think about is one thing that they have always had and still continue to have and absolutely had, even this past week or 2 weeks ago when I saw them, is they're a very good band for like adults. For being such an immature band, like once you catch on to them as an adult, you're with them forever. And you can catch on at a lot of different points. Like there's a lot of people I know who don't know or like punk rock, but got into Green Day from this song, from Time of Your Life. And like they have American Idiot. Like they listen to stuff. They have Dookie. In fact, like they embed themselves into that very, very well.
I was going to say you have a whole generation of adults that got into Green Day with American Idiot. Think of how many people are like 15 years younger than me that their first experience with Green Day was American Idiot in 2004.
Well, it came out. I was a junior in high school, and I'm almost.
That's what I'm saying. So
so
like there's people that between like your age and let's say like 5 or 6 years younger than you. That's what y'all heard. Maybe even 10 years younger than you. That y'all heard American Idiot first. And like me, I'm just old enough to where I heard Dookie first.
Yeah, that could have been their introduction into like alternative music, all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And
that and like MCR. And that's what now they're punk rocks.
Yeah, these people and these kids will be 20 years old now. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. It's like, I mean, now I'm old as dirt.
Oh, that is insane that all these albums are this old. All right, so I got 2 left. It's not hard to figure out. Now, no, I don't know if this is controversial or not, but it just is what it is. So number 2 is Dookie. Now, I wanted to put actually Dookie lower.
You've just blown my motherfucking mind.
I wanted to put it lower just because I was like, do I really want to have Dookie that high? Like, yeah, Rob, you put the punk album from '94, you're gonna have it. And I was like, okay. But then I went back and listened to it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is the album. This is the other than the album that I have number 1. This is the Green Day album. There is, I would say, 0 skips on this thing. Right when it starts with Burnout, you're singing along every single word. The hits are huge. They're big. There's the good hits from Welcome to Paradise to like the more like MTV sort of normie stuff like Sheep. Yeah. It has everything. It's one of those. So it's like this. And I think of like, I think Nevermind by Nirvana is another one like this. And there's like 4 other albums where like, if you never owned the album, you still know 80% of the track list because the songs were so big that so many of those songs got out there. And the songs that didn't make it onto the album may even be better than some of the album songs on this thing. Because like, I don't know that they ever like those, I've saying how maybe I had it on my list, but like we were saying where Kerplunk could have gone just like a little bit further. I think like the punky songs that the pop punky songs that we don't really hear so much don't really exist anywhere else in Green Day's catalog either. I think that's the only spot that they exist. So they're even evolved from Kerplunk. And then you like, I know you don't like Longview, but like, dude, I can listen to Longview on loop.
I think that the 2 songs that I don't like from that album, and I'll tell you off camera because I'm not going to talk about it on camera right now. I will at some point, but I'm not going to do it right now. I have like really fucked up memories from that those songs trigger. So I don't know if that's PTSD or what, but every time I hear them, like I can listen to them. I'm not a whiny baby about it, but I just don't like them. And I think it's because as soon as I hear them, I have these memories of stuff that happened to me and like just a point in my life where I wasn't very happy. I was going through a lot of stuff. I lost a close friend, lost my dad around that time. Like, I just don't. It's weird, man, because the song's not a bad song. Like, you'll never hear me go, and the song is terrible, because that's not the case. I just don't like it for some reason. That had something inside of me. It's weird, man. It's weird. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm freaking flabbergasted with your list, by the way.
It seems to be a common theme every week.
I guess so, man. This one's the most shocked. I really thought Dookie was going to be your number one.
Yeah, and like I said, like it was going to be the number one, or I was going to find ways to pick it apart. And it is because, and I talked about how important I feel about. We started the show how important I absolutely feel this album is, and like there's there's so much of lore and history, a lot of which stay tuned to the Punk Odds because a lot of that is coming. So if what I'm going to focus on from this video is actually that time period, maybe specifically like Woodstock 94 and all that, because I find that time period super, super interesting. But then we know what number, you can do the math for what number one is, I'm sure, right?
1039?
What's number one on my list?
I said 1039.
Yeah.
American Idiot, I guess.
Yes, of course, it's American Idiot. So again, American Idiot, which it doesn't fit me because I've lost too much weight, but I got my American Idiot shirt right here. It's not really in the camera. Holy shit, this is number one by a freaking mile for me, and it's not even close. So there's some people who don't like it, and I remember that being a thing. Oh, okay, well that's it was like okay, and I just hadn't listened to it in a while. Starting about last May, and you can find it kind of put the pieces together. Why? Yeah. I listened to this album almost every single day. Till very recently. That wasn't. It's not like I'd gone on a long gap from American Idiot. It just specifically I had listened to it at the time in 2004. Wow. That's my peak of being into all this stuff, right? Okay. That is my peak. And I had all the Green Day albums, but it was more like kind of the way you are, like with the Ramones, where it's like you get it, you respect them, you understand it, but you kind of like everything else that was around them.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I kind of thought like Green Day's kind of uncool. Like I was like, I'd rather listen to, to Rant, and I'd rather listen to Pennywise, I'd rather listen to even Blink. I followed 2003. I didn't like Blink anymore, but at the time they were in general a good favorite. And then American Idiot came out and I was like, holy shit, this is the album I wish I had made. Like in a fantasy world where I'm the hero of this great story and I'm like the punk rock legend. That's the album that we make. It is that
interesting.
And I wanted to dress like that. Like I loved that album so much. And I still do. I love the concept of it. I love the whole thing of it being like an opera and a story, the whole St. Jimmy's theme. I like the song, American Idiot, obviously great song, but just kind of also just like classic bass line. I think also song. It's not one of the great songs, just a good song. Reminds me of that time period though. Reminds me of 2004. Reminds me of Bush administration, Iraq war, Donald Rumsfeld, like all of those things. Michael Moore being a celebrity, all those things just feel very 04. It feels like that. But then what puts it over the top, and I've told you this before, my personal, if we ever do a favorite Green Day songs, my personal favorite Green Day song, Jesus Suburbia. Like to me, that song is so untouchable. Now it wouldn't be on a list of top 10 songs I ever made because it's not as digestible. And we were talking about earlier that it's like a vibe. I absolutely
love the decline on a top 10 song list. Like, come on, bro.
Yeah, like it's not fair, and it's not fair to the song itself, and it's not fair to the other songs in the list because it's obviously more. It's like 6 different songs cobbled together into one. But even like Give Me Novocaine when it shuts down, I still like When September Ends, even though I'll do the meme every year about waking up Billy Joe in April. I'm a little sick of it, but
no, it's not a bad song though.
Like the song Holiday, which again is like a song that honestly sounds like it could have been on Warning, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. I think Holiday is like a Warning song that you put this American Idiot flavor to. Now, American, if you don't like production in music, you'll hate American Idiot. It is produced to like the T.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to talk about production. It is. We've talked about this a lot. They were just doing a lot of production in the early 2000s. Like every album we talk about, regardless of genre, there's just a lot of bells and whistles on those albums.
Well, it's because computers became like part of everyday life back then. Mm-hmm. So like it was no more like old lo-fi or analog recording. It was all digital, or it was starting to become digital. So if you had some money, you could put all the bells and whistles on it, which is why a record from say like The Unseen from 2004 is going to sound different than a record from Green Day because Unseen was on a smaller budget. So they're going to have much more grittier sound no matter what. No, even if they wrote the same songs, they would still sound different.
Which is funny because I think we've talked about this before. The 90s in all of music to me is the peak of recording. As far as like albums in general, never sounded better than they did in the night, just from a production standpoint. Like every band's best sounding album is usually in the 90s if you go through their discographies.
Really? Okay.
And I wonder, like, did it, because everything was getting bigger and everything, you know, and people had money to make records in the 90s too. That's part of it too. But like, did it get too much? And you went to the tipping point in the 2000s where there's almost too much flavor, too much color, and then we go that malaise in the like late 2000s and stuff where everything goes the opposite. And we start stripping everything like way back down in all of music. Like all those patterns seem to have held up.
Yeah, I don't know if I have the brain power to talk about that right now. I don't know that I agree, but I don't know that I disagree either. I think I'd have to like really think about that. I just yeah, you're probably right actually, but it's like right with some like asterisks next to it in my opinion.
For sure. Anyway though, like
American Idiot, you're number one, huh?
Yeah, American Idiot number one. I like everything around the album. I like the concert DVD that was filmed, the Red Festival. I think I love the music videos that came with this album. Especially the Jesus of Suburbia video.
I've never been a music video guy.
That's 15 minutes long. It's like you're setting in to watch a TV program because you do the narrative parts in between and all that.
Yeah.
It's as you could tell, I absolutely love American Idiot. It's funny because to me it's almost the end of my punk rock life too, was kind of American Idiot.
Yeah.
Like 2005 is when I started transitioning kind of into different stuff, and I was not as young anymore. And so if Dookie launched it, it's almost like then it's like this caught it, I feel like at the very end, because like 2005, then My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, all that stuff, that starts taking over what alternative rock becomes defined as, and punk and pop punk really fades into in the forms that they were in, at least fade into the background. Well, I must be getting worked up. My watch tells me I'm going outside for a walk. That's what American Idiot is doing to me. It's thinking I'm walking.
Okay. Every single thing that you said you liked about American Idiot, like verbatim, dude, everything that you pointed out, we're like, I like it because of this, and because of this, and because of this, is exactly what I do not like about it. I'm pretty shocked, to be honest. I was not expecting us to have such a disagreement on that one. But whatever. It's your list. You can do whatever you want with it. And, you're my boy, so I ain't tripping. It does show you that 5-6 years of difference makes a big difference. Because if I was 5 or 6 years younger, who knows what I would like better? There's no telling, because I'm not, and we won't know. But okay, let me talk about my top 5 then. So
yeah, excited,
bro. So my top 5 Green Day albums. I almost said songs. I really fought with number 5. Number 5 is the only place where I had an actual issue. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to put there. So my number 5 is going to be my number 5 and 6. 6 is American Idiot. And 5 would be Warning. I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I just can't put American Idiot as number 5 based solely on the length of the songs and how they put that record together. It's not meant for playlists. It's meant to listen to in its entirety, and I don't want to. I hated their clothes. I hated the stupid red ties. I hated the production. I hated the long songs. I don't care about the opera bullshit. I don't care about none of it. I hated that record. Like, I hated it. I only like it now because I'm 41 and I can look at it and go, well, yeah, I hated it. So here's the thing. When that record came out, okay, so American Idiot, let's see here. Let me read this how I wrote it. So, because I don't want to be like, unfair because of where you put it. No, this is where I put it. So I put Warning and American Idiot is where I put Warning dropped on October 10th, 2000. American Idiot dropped on September 25th, I think, or 21st. I can't tell. 2004, so almost 4 years apart. Very different sounds on these albums, and it depends on the mood that I'm in, which I prefer. Warning is a lot more folky Clash style music, and American Idiot is a bigger stadium sound with the punk opera stuff. I don't really care for that often, but when I want it, there is nothing better than this album, which I have to stand by. That is true. If that's what I'm looking for, there isn't one done better than that, in my opinion. I was working at Hot Topic, dude. I was a manager at Hot Topic, and
so what do I hate guys?
So I hated Green Day, American Idiot. I hated My Chemical Romance. I hated Harry Potter. I hated Nightmare Before Christmas. I still hate most of that stuff. So I was just probably bombarded with it. I don't know. The songs aren't bad. Like, I'm not saying that they're bad songs because that's ludicrous. I am flabbergasted that you had it at your number one. I was expecting Dookie there for some reason, but whatever. But I did put down some songs that I liked off the record. I put the title track is great. The song opens the album perfectly. I love that riff and the melody. Holiday, Boulevard of Broken Dreams. The big gripe is how it's structured. I hate the songs being stuck together. It's awful for playlists. It's okay for mixtapes, though, I guess. That's what I wrote down as my notes for American Idiot. I only had like one song I could really pull out that I really loved. But Warning, I had a couple. I like Castaway. I really like Misery, but it gets a little too long. Hold On, Jackass, and Minority. There was like 5 or 6 songs off Warning that I could put on any mixtape and really enjoy it. I don't want to bag on the record too much. It is what it is. I didn't like it, and but it did make it into like the conversation. Like it wasn't like a bad record. Like I didn't even want to listen to the other ones. I could hardly get through Uno Dos Tre. And it's not that they were bad. It's just too much material.
They're boring.
I don't know that I said it was boring. It was just too big a task. Like, because first off, how do you separate those? You have to put them kind of together. So that means you have to listen to them together. It was just like, bro, what a terrible idea. So, anyways, my number 4, Kerplunk, January 17th, 1992, 16 songs, 42 minutes, very Ramones heavy, deeper vocals, and I like the production a lot on this album. That's what I wrote. Literally the opposite of what you were saying. That's so dumb. The top songs I like were 2000 Light Years. I really enjoy that one. Christie Road, it's very Misfits-esque, if you ask me.
Very slow. I know they're slow. They have some good ballads in that.
Yeah. It's got a great bridge. I put this album has a youthful tone. Android has a great opening and the bridge. This song shows where this band was heading musically way before people recognized it. Let's see. Who Wrote Holden Caulfield has a crazy breakdown and a funky bass line followed by a cool drum fill and vocal harmonies. Yeah, I'm just trying to read this stuff. I wrote it really fast and really small, so it's hard to read. Sorry. Sweet Children may be my favorite and their most outright punk rock song on the album. Best Thing in Town has some great shredding, and they did a great cover of The Who's My Generation. That record, Kerplunk, when I first played it, I thought, oh, crap, is this going to be my number 1? Like, it was real close to being, like, way higher. But ultimately, I kept listening to the records and was like, okay, calm down. Like,
I think those last couple of songs were on the re-releases. I don't think those were on the first.
Were they?
First, yeah. Yeah,
I don't remember because it's been so long since I've listened to that I don't remember. I have no idea. So
and it's funny. I was saying like their classic rock vibe. They've always kind of covered classic rock songs too.
Yeah,
all the way back then.
Crazy, huh? So my number 3, Dookie, February 1st, 1984. 15 songs, 38.5 minutes. The Green Day record that changed it all. Excellent songwriting and production. My favorite songs would be Having a Blast. It's got an amazing hook. Pulling Teeth, Basket Case, that fucking riff, dude. Are you serious? Like, man. And then She is my personal favorite Green Day song in the end. All those songs are really great, but I think She might be my favorite Green Day song. It's definitely top 5 for me. I love that song. I don't know why. I love it. I hear it and I'll go, that's another one that puts me back in a place in my life where something was going on. But that one has positive. Isn't that crazy, dude?
Yeah.
How one album can be so polarizing. 2 songs, I'm like, oh, I can't even hear those songs. And then one, I'm like, nah, dude, that one makes me think about this time in my life. I don't even really know. I can't tell you a specific scenario, but I can tell you that it was a happier thought process. It might have been one like a girl liked or something. I don't know. Number 2. Boy, if I tell you number 2 and you can't figure out what number 1 is, number 2 is Nimrod. If you had just asked, I probably would have put this one at number 1. It's amazing songwriting and production, a classic punk rock record. My favorite songs are The Grouch, All the Time, It's got the best hook and melody. Platypus, I Hate You is just a straight up punk rock song. Uptight, I put Such a Beautiful Melody with the guitar and the bass. Good Riddance, and then it's a perfect song. This album rules. It has so much meat on the bone. This is where they became superstars and superstar musicians, excuse me, and not just punk rock kids. And I put, but it's a little bit too long. That's my only complaint. That was what I wrote down. And obviously my number one is Insomniac, October 10th, 1995, 14 songs, 33 minutes. And then I just put the best that Green Day ever got. All the special stuff about Dookie with more experience. It's so good. What Nimrod would have felt like if it were all killer, no filler. The best songs, well, if I have to pick some, because this album is a no skip record for me, would be Brat, Geek Stink Breath, Babs the Vula Who, Brain Stew, and Jaded. Those are my favorite songs on the record, but that record is the only record that I personally think is a zero skip record from Green Day. Every other album, they have at least one or two songs that I would skip, personally. Objectively, that's, they're all pretty good, actually. But man, that's my list. It's so weird because it's like almost a flip-flop of yours.
So
we don't usually do that. We usually have like the top end's different and then the bottom starts to match up.
Yeah, we had the top all there, just in slightly different order. We had all the same albums. Like I don't think there's an album we had like that I had and you didn't.
Technically, your number one's not even on my top 5. It's number 6.
Okay, but like I had Kerplunk like right there, my number 6. So that's like the one we could swap out.
Top 5. But I had Kerplunk at number 4.
Yeah, but again, we're talking matters of degrees here. But
I don't think so because top 5's important, dude. 1 and 4 are very far apart in my opinion.
I think if you make the top 5, you're on the like, especially with as many albums as they have. I think that's like those albums are on a different tier. I think like the way I approach like if I mentioned the list the same way. If I mentioned it today, like it was you're in the Hall of Fame, so to speak.
Oh, interesting. Because that's not how I look at it. Because if I mentioned you today, I just mentioned you today. It doesn't mean anything. You got to look at the context of what I mentioned, in which I mentioned it. And like as an example, American Idiot wouldn't be anywhere close to like one of the like honestly, you could take Warning with it too. I don't care. Top 4 is fine with me because like neither of those albums get very many listens to me. That's why I had such a hard time because I didn't care about either of those records. Once it got past top 4, I was like, well, I don't really care. And I almost don't really care about Dookie either because I had such a hard time getting into that album. But listening to it, I had to like give it. If Kerplunk was just produced a little bit better, I would have it higher than Dookie. But that's some kind of hipster pick probably.
Yeah, I see it, and I had that top 7, and then after that, like to me, it would be those 7, and then there's like a massive thing before we got to like 21st Century Breakdown or something.
Oh, I don't care about that record either. Like I don't care about that. I don't care about. I don't listen to any of the stuff that they put out after that. And the singles, I'll listen to that if it's on the radio.
I think the singles are generally good that they put out, but those albums, like I said, I find them boring. That's it. Like they're just like
this new record's gonna be awesome.
The part that I don't like, why I don't like classic rock, I guess, is why I don't like those albums because classic rock I find that has rock has good songs, but hard to listen to like a whole Who album. Like I just
100%, bro.
I can't really do it.
Not wrong.
And I kind of get that vibe here. Hopefully the new album just has like the 2 songs they've already put out. So which one of the 2 new ones are you on? I'm on The American Dream Is Killing Me. Are you on the second one? Look, Ma, No Brains.
Hold on, let me think for a second. Yeah. They're both really good, man. I don't know that I have a favorite, really. They're both fantastic songs. I would say that recency bias has me thinking No Brains a little bit more, but it's only because I've listened to it less. If I had heard them at the exact same time and got the exact same listens out of them, I'd probably like them the exact same because they're both pretty similar in quality. I don't know, man. The American Dream Is Killing Me. It sure is a punchy song, dude. That's just real.
It's funny because like my opinion is after American Idiot, they were trying to do like the American Idiot thing and not quite hitting it. And I'm like, oh, they're kind of doing it right there in that song though. Like it's the big anthem type songs that they had a lot of those on American Idiot. And they just tried to do anthems like on all their other albums after that. And they never quite worked to the same level. And I think this is them pulling that back and kind of finding like a perfect medium to do it. And not just do a punk rock song, but have one of your like Bohemian Rhapsody style songs that they have so many of.
It's not long enough for that. It doesn't have enough different stuff in it for that. But I see your point. Somebody else told me that, oh, it's just like American Idiot. And I was like, wait, what? So I thought, man, maybe it is. But I went back and listened to them like back to back a few times. And I was like, no, dude, it's just because it's got the word American in it is why you're saying that. They are not the same song. They don't sound very similar to me.
I think I don't think they sound similar, but I think like the way, especially like a song like Jesus Suburbia specifically, but a lot of the songs on that album feel like they're pieces of songs that are kind of sewed together. And I think The American Dream Is Killing Me has that sort of vibe where you flipped into a few different like almost genres within the same song. And I think there was a lot of that on American Idiot. And I think that's where I'm making the connection, not so much in the specifics.
Yeah, I just don't think there's much difference in that song. It has a slow bridge, and then it's just I just don't. It doesn't have a lot of variance in that one song. It's a pretty straightforward song. It's got like it's got a bridge in it, which is every song's got not every song, but a lot of songs have bridges in them.
You have the acapella bridge.
Yeah, it's like very Beatles-esque, but like
that's exactly what it sounds like. I've been trying it all day. That bridge has been in my head all day.
Yeah, but I mean, like that's the worst part of the whole song. But at least to me. Yeah, that song's fantastic, bro. I don't know. Dude, that's a really good question. I don't know which one I like better. Let me wait for the third single. Maybe one of those will just kind of stick their head out and go, no, I'm the best one. Because I'll tell you what, the best new song out there is the new Alkaline Trio one.
That's a really good song.
It's so good. And it has the F word in it, which makes it a little more attractive.
But that part, and then the same part of the verse when he does that, when he says, "I thank God I'm still alive." That's the way, like only Skiba can make that sound. Whatever that sound is that he made, it's just he's the only person in the whole history of humanity that can make that sound.
Somebody made a video where they're like, "Look at the Matt Skiba riff," and it was like all these songs had the same chords, and I was like, "No, dude." They were like, "It's the same riff over and over and over." I was like, "No, dude, it's the same chords played differently with a different like. How can you not see that? It's not the same riff, dumbass. It's the same chords." And they just I hate people sometimes. But yeah, man, Green Day is a great band. I don't think they're gonna ever reach like my top 10 or 20 punk bands ever, but like they might reach the top bands list at some point. I don't even think that they touch the top punk bands list personally, but not top 10, maybe top 25. Because they're definitely important. I just think that you and I disagree on like where that importance lies.
Yeah,
or maybe the degree of how much importance is there.
If I made like a top bands list, it would take a little while to get to them. It really would. At the same point, I kind of treat them like they're almost like family members. Where I won't listen to them for like 3 years, but when they walk in the door, like we're all quiet and listening to what there's a sort of reverence that I have for them, and I do generally like that. Like I had so much fun this weekend listening to all this Green Day. And I say that every week, but like because it was such a departure, because I had fun listening to Pennywise too, but I do generally listen to Pennywise on a regular basis. This was just a time to do it focused. I generally, except for the American Idiot binge that I've been on for like a year, I generally don't like just act like I have Dookie over there. It's my daughter's copy because it's her favorite band. So like nice. And I don't really own a whole lot of other Green Day stuff at the moment, so it would take me a minute to get to them. However, I think if I'm just going album by album, song by song, I can put them very high on the list. Of just the totality of their career. I think I tend to not consider them necessarily when I'm breaking these things down. They're almost I don't really have a good reason for it because there's other bands that are definitely of similar status to them that I would consider
because they kind of have their own place in history at this point. But
yeah, they're a Gilman band, but they're not like an underground band, and they're a pop band, but not really. They're still a punk, but yeah, they are their own thing. They are a weird thing, man. And I'm sorry for all the moving, and I'm still kicking over this cold, man. I don't know what happened. I've been sick for like a week. Yeah. So I got to sit in the car today and listen to. So my son's 10, my oldest, and so we're listening to music, and he's starting to kind of understand what music is and like how important it is to me. And I think he already kind of knew it was important to me, but I don't think he understood like what was or why. And so I'm like starting him with Blink and a little Rancid and some Green Day. And he hasn't heard Green Day before, so I'm going to let him hear some Green Day stuff this week. But we sat in the car and he had never heard Blink 182. And I said, "Well, have you heard this song?" And I played one, and he was like, "No." And he just doesn't pay attention to music stuff, right? Yeah.
And I said, and he goes, "Oh, this is a good song." And I was playing Enema of the State, and it was Anthem. And I said, "Oh, there's 3 parts to this song." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, they made it 3 different times, like 3 different generations of Anthem." And he was like, "Oh," I said, "You got a minute?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "You want to hear it?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I played Anthem Part 2 and Anthem Part 3. And he was like, wow. And he said, what did he say? He's so smart. He goes, the progression of their sound is crazy, Dad. This is a 10-year-old. And I was like, yeah, bro. Like, what? Don't make me feel stupid, man. Yeah. Like, and I was like, well, which one did you like better? And he's like, I don't know. I'd have to listen to them more. And I was like, what an amazing answer. Like, I don't know. I had to listen. Dude, that's an answer that not a 10-year-old gives.
Yeah.
10-year-olds go, that one. And they don't think about it. He's like, let me think about it for a minute.
Seek out more information. Yeah. Look at that.
I'm pretty stoked for the future with him, man. We're going to take him, and it's going to be my wife, my oldest two. We're going to go to see Green Day Rancid in like next year for my wife's birthday.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's coming right around her birthday time. So this will be the third time that we've seen Rancid for her birthday in our relationship, which I think is pretty freaking cool.
That's a fun fact.
Yep. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
We saw him with the Interrupters way back when, like way back, dude, like 10 years ago. We saw him with Dropkick like 3 years ago, and then we're gonna go see him next year with Green Day. All great shows too.
Like, all kinds of spectrums of
yep.
other artists, and
I'm taking Charlie because the Linda Lindas are playing, and I want her to see another lady band. And I think it's amazing that they're taking the Linda Lindas on tour with them. Yo, what are we going to talk about next week?
Do you want to do a songs episode, or do you want to do?
Yeah, we can do that. So for anybody watching this, I'm going to have a surgery on Monday, the 13th or something like that. I'm having a surgery. It's very minor, but if you're the praying type, throw me in your prayers, man. I'm not looking forward to surgery. I don't like being put under. I've put off a lot of surgeries in my life because I didn't want to have the anesthesia and stuff, but at least throw me some positive vibes, dude. I'm kind of nervous about it. I don't really want to do this. Like, it's a very minor thing, and I'm just like, if I could get around doing it, I would. But the wife needs me in full health. So yeah, let's do a top 5. Let's see. What band would get people talking? What band who do you want to listen to? Dude. Top 5 bouncing soul songs.
Oh, okay. Yes. I've been diving into them quite a bit lately, so
I haven't, and I would love to listen to the Bouncing Souls.
But I need a break from like Green Day, Blink.
That's what I was thinking. I almost said Bad Religion or NoFX, and I was like, but we've just talked about them recently. We can do them later. We can do NoFX.
I need to dive into something that's like my shit. You know what I mean? That's
exactly what I was thinking. And Bouncing Souls is my shit. Dude, this might all be on one album too. It might be just one record where I'm like, crap, it's these 5 songs.
And as big as their career, we are definitely gonna be on like completely different pages.
Okay, should we do top 5 or top 10?
Let's do 10 if we're doing songs, because we don't have to spend like a bunch of time on each one. I'm sure we will, but
yeah. Let me look. Okay, I think everybody that I was watching is doing top 5 song lists, but that doesn't really matter. I'm just.
We'll have 10 songs total. I mean, I'm sure there'll be overlap, obviously, but
yeah. Let's see.
That's what's fun about songs. The least potential for overlap of any list that we do.
Let's just call it top 5, and you do like somewhere between 5 and 10.
That's usually what we do anyway. I did 7 today, so
see if you can make a top 5 list, which likely you cannot. And then I'll try to make one, and likely I will not. And then we'll just call it top 5.
Already stressed out about like where I'm going to put certain songs. I'm thinking about it right now. Like,
as soon as I thought, I was like, oh, I have 5 in my head right now. I was like, oh, those are all not going to make it, I don't think. And I was like, crap, dude. Okay. Do you listen to the Lawrence Arms?
I have been lately, just because I've been listening to a lot of Alkaline Trio, and they're coming up on my thing a lot.
Yeah, we need to do a Lawrence Arms.
I don't know them that well. I know a few of their songs. So when we do it, you'll be kind of the lead on that one. I know them a little bit, but
we might just do like a rankings list of their albums. They don't have enough albums to do like a top 5 necessarily. Like, they have more than 5 records, but it would be stupid to call it top 5. We could just rank their records. But let's put that on the board for next couple of weeks if we can, just to do like a Lawrence Arms appreciation episode where we talk about them, where they're from, some of our favorite tracks, and make it maybe like a solid hour episode instead of a 90-minute one that time, because I'm going to be recovering from that surgery, and so it'd be cool to do. Bouncing Souls I'm way more familiar with, so this will be a lot easier on me.
It will literally soothe your soul as you're talking about Bouncing Souls.
Well, the Lawrence Arms are a band that's very important to me, but I wouldn't quite put them in the top 10 bands thing, but they're way up there, dude. They're like probably a top 15, 20 at worst band for me. So I love that band, and their lyrics are amazing. Have you heard The Falcon?
No, is that a song by them?
It's Dan from Alkaline Trio and Brendan from Lawrence Arms and somebody else. It's like Bro, go listen to the Falcon Unicornography and just get back to me on this, bro. No. I think I just changed your life, sir. Just imagine what those two bands together sound like, because that's what it is. It's so good.
That sounds so incestuous already.
It does, doesn't it? When I first heard it, I was like, oh, this is better than both of these bands. Now it's not, but it's really good. I got real into them for a while.
Pornography, that's what you're talking about?
That album is fantastic. They don't have a lot of material either, which is unfortunate. But
4 albums or 3 albums, looks like.
Do you listen to the U.S. Bombs at all?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some other bands we could cover that aren't just the same old bands.
Yeah,
you know what we should do? We should do a top 5 like Ramones thing. Get out of our comfort zone a little bit.
Oh, I'd be very comfortable with the Ramones, but that's different for our show, though. Yeah.
Top 5 Ramones core bands.
Oh. Yeah.
On the list. That'll be on the list. That's on the list soon.
I'm kind of
because that would be a fun episode, because there's gonna be bands we don't even know that people will be able to tell us in the comments, which I think is, as long as they're being respectful, I think that's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But awesome, dude. Well, shoot, man, I'm gonna go take a quick break, and then I got to do the other pod with the fellas. Bro, glad to see you. Really digging the haircut, man. It looks really good. Like, I'm happy for you, bro. That must have been a relief when you cut it and you're like, oh, it looks good, it looks better. Because well, so what happened was, when I mentioned it to you, is because you turned, and in a certain light, it was going. It was like I was like, oh, I can see what he would look like with a really short haircut. And I was like, my man, you would look 10 years younger, because you just de-aged yourself by a fair amount, which is incredible. But I'm happy for you, man. Yeah, shoot me a message. I'll hit you up before I go into surgery Monday, because I'm all about it. But yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, this will be a day late next week, folks. So just be patient. We're coming. But hell yeah, dude. Top 10 Bounce and Soul songs, or top 5, whatever. Top Bounce and Soul songs. It's their whole discography, just so y'all know.
It's all available.
Bro, they have so many great songs, dude. I Like Your Mom. Come on, dude.
There's so many songs. That's gonna be a lot to go through.
Have you heard that song? Mm-hmm. I like your mom and it's not bad. I want to marry her and be. Come on, bro. Everybody used to like that song.
Gonna be the most Jersey-tastic episode we've ever done.
Damn, dude, we got to do like 2 or 3 episodes on these guys, because we got to like rank their albums too. I need to listen to their more recent albums. I haven't like really dug deep into them.
Yeah, I've listened to. I always like them, and then I just never listen to them again.
Well, that's 10 Stories High was a really good record.
Yeah, got crowded out a little bit with all this other good new stuff. I feel like we forgot about it a little bit.
Yeah, kind of. All right, everybody, thank you for hanging out with us, man. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, go check out the Punk Ots. Go check out 31 Records, man. We just dropped Bullshit Detectors, Rat Tail single. I got their full length coming pretty soon. Poppers from Houston. So if you like the Descendants and Rancid, check them out. Yeah, dude, doing big things over here. And we got the Shop 31's boutique coming pretty soon. I got a lot of stuff in the works, man. So if you want to support the channel without just giving me money, I would prefer that. I would like you to get something for your money. So if you want to do that, just let me know if you can't figure it out, and I'll help you. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it. Peace.